that's something that we've worked hard on, and it's an example of rejecting either-or thinking. And we have been able to reduce contacts over the last 7 or 8 years by 85%, which is a huge reduction. And that level of that driving down contacts per unit continues. The other thing you have to do if you're going to innovate, and that we try to do at Amazon.com, is maximize the rate of experimentation. So, and if you're going to do that, you have to make sure that your cost of doing experiments is low. If your cost of doing experiments is high, then you're only going to get to do, the company is only going to do a few experiments per year. And if you're doing a few experiments per year, you're going to have to do some kind of global prioritization to see which kind of experiments you can do. And that's going to have a couple of downsides. One is you're not going to do much experimentation. But the second is that the best, most inventive people in your organization are going to become frustrated because they're going to have to get, ultimately, if Amazon could only do 3 experiments a year, then if you wanted to do an experiment, you'd have to get my permission to do it. And I'm not scalable. So that is going to put a huge impediment in the way of invention. And if you want, on the other hand, if you want to make experimentation that everybody can do it and that doesn't take, sort of, the institutional apparatus doesn't have to approve every experiment, then you need to make the cost of experimentation low if you're still going to make it a reasonable thing to do and not irresponsible. I mean, you can't just if the cost of experimentation is high, you can't just say, yeah, this is going to cost $100 million to do this experiment, but go for it. So getting that cost low is key. And one of the things that we've done over the years is put a lot of effort into making sure that our infrastructure and the framework that operates our website and other parts of our business really make it easy for people to do experiments in a self-service way without coordination with the institutional apparatus. One of the great things about operating on the web is that you have so much the ability to collect data. And many things that in the physical world, because the cost of experiment would be high, you have to use judgment to decide those things. You have to use intuition to judge those things because you can't do the experiment at realistic cost. So you end up having to argue over it. And on the web, you can often just know the answer. So, a simple example, this was a control, this page, and you'll see the difference here. A new line is going to pop up. Want it delivered tomorrow, May 5th, order it in the next 2 hours and 53 minutes, and choose one-day shipping at checkout. So this is an experiment we did about a year ago, and 50% of the customers saw it this way, and 50% of the customers saw it this way. And you can just literally measure the impact that this has on all sorts of important metrics, first and foremost, sales. So you can see just telling people that they should order in the next 2 hours and 53 minutes increase sales or decrease sales. And by how much? And is this worth doing? And is it worth pushing harder on? And so on and so on. So being able to do that kind of experiment and not having it be a big deal is really wonderful. Here's another example, an even simpler example. This is, customers who bought this also bought something that we're well known for. And this has been improved over the years dramatically. Here's a small example. This was tested too, although it's not the one I'm showing here. We added series to it so that here's an actual individual DVD, but here's series from different things. That was a successful experiment, so it stayed. One of the experiments that we ran with this customers who bought this also bought was it seemed very intuitive that if this works well, then adding images might make it work even better. So we added images. Turned out that it didn't make it work better. It made it work worse. And even though that's a little counterintuitive. I mean, to me, I can see it both ways, but that's kind of the whole point here. You have your a priori guesses, but then you actually validate them with real data. Here's another try at images. Since when this one didn't work, people said, well, maybe it's too clunky, maybe it's pushing things down below the fold. So this one was tried, but it also didn't work as well. So we stuck with this one. The other thing we try to do at Amazon.com is have a customer-centric obsession instead of a competitor-obsessed point of view. And there are, by the way, it's not clear in all companies at all times that this is the right strategy. Competitor focus and, in fact, close following strategies can be very effective in certain business environments, and there's certainly nothing wrong with that. But in our industry, and given the DNA that we have inside the company, the kind of people that we've attracted over time are people who like to invent, people who like to pioneer. So, we have the wrong culture to be close followers. So there's part of this that, we are what we are, and we kind of have to stick with that and make the best of that. I actually think in our space, this is also very handy because the rate of change in the online world is so rapid that close following doesn't work as well as it might in a more stable industry that changes more slowly over time. But one of the things about these fast-changing industries is I often get asked by audiences, if I do a Q&A period, what's going to change in 5 to 10 years? One of the questions that I rarely get asked, and I think is at least as important of a question, and maybe in some ways an even more important question, is what is not going to change over the next 5 to 10 years? And that's another reason why customer-centric strategies can be so powerful. Because competitor-focused strategies have to change a lot. The competitive set changes so rapidly. Over the last 10 years, our competitive set has changed, and the technologies have changed. So many things change. But the basic drivers of our business, the core things that customers want, do not change. We know that what customers want are selection, low prices, and convenience. And I guarantee you that 10 years from now, they're still going to want selection, low prices, and convenience. We are not going to wake up 10 years from now and have customers say, this is all well and good. I love this thing, Amazon.com, but could you make it a little less convenient? It's just not going to happen. And so when you work on low prices, you have to figure out inventive ways to do that. And there are inventions at different granularities. A lot of the most important invention happens at the finest granularities. So incremental improvements in unit productivity are critical. So in our fulfillment centers, which are about we have about 7 million square feet of fulfillment centers. Each one is about 700,000 square feet. These are huge buildings, kind of corner to corner. They're half a mile on a side. And so, how do you pick? You can order any 2 items. We have more than 1 million items in stock. Which, to put that in context, a Barnes & Noble superstore has about 125,000 items. A Costco or Sam's Club has about 4,000 items. A big box electronics store has about 7,000 items. So over 1 million in-stock items is a lot of items. And you can order any 2 of those items, and before 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, if you order them before 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, we will ship them that same night. So, and those 2 items might be on opposite sides of this big fulfillment center. So there's a tremendous amount of work and very sophisticated computer algorithms that go into optimizing the pick paths so that we can pick those items and get them into the same box at low cost. It's easy to do that if you're not worried about optimizing cost. It's very difficult to do that if you are concerned about optimizing cost. So those kinds of incremental improvements, taking those pick path algorithms and making them modestly better and doing that every day. And the key to doing that kind of invention is to make sure that you have small, separate, empowered teams that aren't subject to a bunch of dependencies in the rest of the organization. They know what they're trying to achieve, and they go about making those incremental improvements day in, day out, month in, month out. They have to be able to answer the question, which and it's amazing. You'll find that this is very common in the business world, that people often cannot answer the question, how do you know whether you're getting better or not? At this particular thing. And picking the granularity of where you ask that question is the trick. I mean, it's very easy, on the distant outputs, if you look at, something like free cash flow or revenues, those kinds of things, people know whether they're getting better, but those things are not directly actionable. You can't, assign some team and say, look, go drive free cash flow. It's just too easy. I mean, it's easy to command them to do it, but they won't be able to do it. I mean, it's a useless kind of thing to ask for. And then on bigger granularities. So one of the things that we also observe is that used products can have much more value proposition for customers. So we invite third-party sellers to compete against us on our prime real estate, which is our detail pages. That's an invention that also not only adds lower price, but selection too. So you go through all these things. Selection, one of the things that we've done recently to increase breadth of selection at Amazon is, again, invite these third-party sellers in. This works in all the categories where we operate. And in some of the newer categories, like apparel, it's a huge part of the strategy. Convenience. The most recent thing that we've done to increase convenience is for our heavy customers, which is something called Amazon Prime. And Amazon Prime is we only launched this a week ago, and it is a $79 flat fee membership. You pay $79 a year, and you get 2-day shipping for free. And that is the idea here is to take what might be an indulgence for people, getting next day air shipment or second day air. Next day air is just $3.99 an item once you're a member.